Is your remodeling company currently being recommended by large language models like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude? Or would you even know if it was? Today, we're bringing Patrick onto our show, our in-house SEO expert, to explain a 90-day action plan full of practical steps to actually get you cited by AI. If all this seems very overwhelming to you, we're making this episode very beginner-friendly and defining the terms as we go along, so you can actually have a solid foundation for how do you get your company cited in the new era of AI.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Contractor Growth Network podcast. I'm Logan Shinholster, and today we're joined by Patrick Scully, who is basically our marketing savant.
I'll take it.
He is, if you look up like contractor SEO or any of that stuff, we are number one as the time is recording because of Patrick. He is a wizard when it comes to stuff, and today we're talking all about basically how to get found in AI searches within the next 90 days, asterisk.
Yes.
So at the time of this recording, Google just rolled out a bunch of new stuff yesterday at like their big event. They talked about how they're going to start to shift a little bit away from like typical Google searches where it shows the normal like Google links. And then now they're more into like, they're going to kind of push the AI search and Gemini search a little bit more forward. So it's not like you have to push it's not like a fallback method. It's almost like more of a proactive method. So whether we like it or not, this AI search thing is becoming more and more of a thing. So we're going to talk all about today of really what it takes to get found in there. And for those that are doing these things proactively, can you get found in 90 days? What kind of background do you need to already have that if you do these things, you will then be getting found in 90 days? So the whole premise of this is about in the 90-day world, can we get found, or in other words, cited in AI searches? And that's what today is all about.
Yeah, sounds good. So not an overpromise thing, just going to be some good tactics you can take to see increased visibility. It may not be the full, we're not saying in 90 days you'll be, the only person cited, but it's a good way to say, where am I at now? What can I do in the next 90 days? Remeasure after that period of time and see what kind of progress you've made.
Got it. So this is basically like, you're not going to get married in 90 days, but we're at least going to hopefully get you on your first date within 90 days, which after enough of those, you're going to get to that marriage point.
Yep, exactly.
All right. So when we go through the term, let's just say cited, because we're going to say cited a lot during this. What do we mean by being cited in AI search?
So for me, it can mean a couple of different things. One is someone's looking for an answer to a question that they have. So it's more of a how to, a why is this, a how do I do this type of question. And if you have the right content or the right answer to that on your website, on a social media post, wherever it might have landed, you will get cited in the sense that your answer will show. Typically with that, at least in AI overviews or Google's form of AI search, there's kind of citations that come with that to show, okay, here's the answer. This is where we got it from. That's really where you're kind of showing up, is your link to your article. If you've clicked on those, you'll notice they're kind of highlighted in purple when you get there to show exactly where in that piece of content they grab that 2 or 3 sentence bit. The other piece is now you're doing a local search and you're saying, I'm in the market for a remodeler, remodelers near me, remodelers in my town. That citation now is typically your Google business profile showing, especially when you're in that AI mode version of Google. And that's your actual business listing showing. So that's a better click that you're going to get. It typically opens up your Google business profile where now someone has to click through to your website. So for me, it's either providing the answer, and that's like a brand building thing over time. The kind of idea is that, you're seen in your local market as the kind of expert continuously providing this information. The second piece is actually now you're getting shown as the top 5 options in your area. Someone is further down the funnel wanting to click on a local business, probably make a phone call, fill out a form, something like that.
Okay. So basically when we say citation or cited, that is like, if it's more of a what's called an informational search, if somebody just wants to know what's it going to cost, hey, should I go with this style of backsplash or that style of backsplash? If your website or some online entity, whether it's social media or YouTube or whatever it could be, is where they got the answer from, they will then give you credit for that answer coming from you.
Yeah. Search has always been about providing the right answer to the question that's being asked. So, whether that citation from you is a direct answer to a question, here's some data points on, how much kitchen remodeling costs or something of that nature. Or they're looking for the data that they're looking for is reviews and a phone number, and you're providing that through your Google business profile. So however you get surfaced in that search, you're being cited on the data that you're providing. So you either provided an answer to a question or a phone number.
Got it. And then let's just take that first part. So the informational search side of things. I understand, like, if we're here in Charlotte and I want to know how much a kitchen costs, it would be beneficial if I went there and said, what's a kitchen cost here in Charlotte? And then a Charlotte-based company that did kitchen said, this is what it costs based off of all this information that we've, collected over the years. I get that. But if I wanted to say, like, what would be better, a herringbone backsplash or Subway backsplash? Like, how does my company, because like there's no, that's like very, I'm just curious about this stuff, and maybe I'm not even looking at like a remodeling company, right? Maybe I don't even want to have remodel. Maybe I'm just like writing a article for an interior design class that I have in college.
Sure.
What is the benefit of actually having a citation back to my website to say, oh, Patrick's remodeling company was the one that answered which one's better, herringbone versus Subway tile? What's the benefit? Is there a benefit there, like, to actually then at some point driving revenue, or is that more of just like, that's still on the SEO side, where if you get found for that stuff, then that creates that authority that Google goes, oh, they know a lot about backsplashes. When somebody does look up a kitchen in the area, it kind of all ties together.
Yeah, mostly that. It's mostly still the SEO play to make sure you're building up that kind of topical authority, which means you have shared about backsplashes because you're knowledgeable about it. The other option that Google has really displayed a lot of data, especially in their latest event, over the past kind of 6 months, they've come up with a lot of data that's showing that you may get less clicks. So 90% of the people searching for herringbone backsplashes are maybe writing an article, maybe doing a research, maybe not in the market for you specifically. But when that person does come that says, I want a kitchen remodel, I love herringbone, I love all this stuff, because Google knows about them, either they've typed that all out in their search, or because Google's connected to their Gmail and connected to some other things, all that data about them, that click from that person to your website is very highly qualified, already moving further down the funnel than just a typical search visitor from, let's say, traditional kind of organic search, because it's such a specific, exact question that they're asking, something very specific that they're finding or looking for that you provided on their website. So,
okay. So let me rephrase this. So basically, the article itself, that what is better, Subway versus herringbone, that, I mean, it's big for Google because it's still like people are searching for that stuff. But ultimately, if your website has an article that talks through the differences there, and the AI search, we'll call it Gemini because I think that one's going to win. But yep. Gemini knows, all right, Patrick'sRemodelingCompany.com has an article about herringbone versus Subway tile, which means that they're knowledgeable on both of those things. If Logan, the homeowner, says, I'm looking for somebody to redo my kitchen, and Gemini knows, Logan, you've been looking at different tile types, and I see in your emails or your like your texts with your wife or whatever, like you're looking up this herringbone style, because Patrick's website says, has knowledge on herringbone style because of this one article. And when you're looking at who does my kitchen, Patrick's website also says, I do kitchens. It ties the two together. So now basically those blog posts that, the traffic, because people may not be going, because I know for me personally, the way that I use it is like, I don't click on the article a lot of times, but I will like read about it and understand it to understand more about it. But from okay, I'm ready to buy this thing standpoint, the more depth and the better depth that your website's going to cover, the more that when it is time to actually hire somebody to do this thing, the Gemini is going to say, oh, I know all this stuff about Patrick's remodeling company. This is the perfect company for you because of these reasons.
Right. So it's just kind of the next level of search getting smarter. So, whereas it used to just show you 5-10 options and you needed to click through those, they were all good businesses, but you needed to find on their website, do they do backsplashes? How do they feel about them? You have to go dig for that information. So now the 3 to 5 that are getting surfaced in your particular chat may not be the ones that have the most reviews or the most, backlink authority or whatever has driven traditional kind of SEO rankings. It's now re-ranked. So all these systems have kind of a re-ranking functionalities that says, here's 5 people in the area. Let me go re-rank them according to Logan's preferences. So you may not be seeing them just ranked on the number of reviews or, length and time of business or things of that nature, which traditionally have pushed people up the search results. Now you're getting some of those, but also mixed in with highly synthesized to your search.
Okay, so like the way that I look at this is, I remember back in the day, back when I was on Tinder, when you open up the Tinder app, it always showed the most attractive people first.
Okay.
And I assume that was because Tinder knew, okay, these people are getting the most positive swipes on them. It's probably because they're the most attractive, but to keep Logan on the Tinder app, they're going to lead off with the most attractive people because it's like, okay, that now it's like that endorphin high that I get. But the way that Tinder worked was you kind of have to go through everybody to then go on a bunch of dates to then figure out who would be a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Flip it around and you now have somebody that say is a professional matchmaker where I fill out, this is who I'm looking for. I want somebody that is this and this. These are their hobbies. This is that. And then on the flip side, that person's profile has also explained all the things that they are into and they like to do. And then now the matchmaker goes, Logan, you don't need to sift through all these people. You basically just need this one person right here because your interests and your goals and your values align very well with theirs, but we need their information fully filled out and we need all the things that you have filled out, Logan, to make that connection. And then now when I go on the date with that person, I'm not looking at this as like, man, they're pretty hot, but I hope they're not weird, and more of like, okay, I've done this very extensive all about Logan. They have this very extensive all about them. So now I'm going into this date not like, I hope this works out, and way more like, wow, this is probably going to be a fantastic date. I wonder what we're going to do on date 2, even before I even get into date 1.
Yeah, and that matchmaker isn't confined to the data that's in Tinder. I met my wife way before Tinder, so never used it. But
yeah.
So basically, that matchmaker is now looking at what has that person posted on social media in the past year.
I'm active, and
so,
like maybe they didn't explicitly
see like pickleball, but they didn't say they like pickleball, but the picture of them playing, like, so it's a little bit more like broadened out to what does AI know about you, just not like what have you inputted into your website to teach it about you. It's also using reviews from around the internet, and
so it's kind of like
shown up in press or awards and that kind of
game
stuff.
It like I could, like, if I knew, okay, because like they had there was a book that I read. It's here, it's a great book, and it talked about it was by a guy that created a startup that was dating websites before like dating websites were a cool thing. Like it was like he was talking about like the first 5 years, you didn't tell people you were doing internet dating because it was like weird.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, guys with a photo in their profile like image would have like a 15% increase, but women that had it had like an 18% decrease. And the reason for that was because the 15% increase in guys showed, oh, they're empathetic, they're caring. But for the girl, it was, well, at the end of the night, they're going to want to go home to their own house because they have a dog they have to take care of. So they went through all that data to basically say it. So basically what, like in my case, maybe like right now I could game it and just have all my photos be with me and a dog. And you're like, oh, this dude loves dogs. I don't have a dog at home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really a big animal person myself. I think they're fine, but I have 2 kids that are like more than enough. So it'd be very misleading if like I had that, but I could still game it.
Yeah.
But now
so that's topical authority right there.
Yeah.
Because you could game it with a picture of you with a dog But have you ever mentioned hanging out with your dog on social media? Now, there are already pictures of you at the dog park, like, so that's like the depth when you're talking about herringbone articles, like you write that because that's the evidence that's out there to say, okay, this person just didn't show a picture of a herringbone backsplash one time.
Yeah.
There's evidence across the internet that this is true.
And they have examples of it, and then they have clients that posted like, in their review, hey, we love our new kitchen, and then Google can look in that photo, oh, there's a herringbone backsplash,
Yep.
which shows they've actually done it. Okay.
Exactly.
So, all right. So, perfect. This is very helpful because it kind of reframes the whole point of like yes, you can still game it to a certain extent, but like it is becoming harder and harder from at least my perspective to game some of this stuff. The biggest way to game it is just to do the right stuff correctly, which is what we're going to talk about in the next 90 days. But
Yep.
for right now, there's a lot. I mean, I would say half the sales calls I'm on, people are like, oh, if you think the photos on our website are fine, you should look at the ones in my Dropbox or Google Drive. And they send me just like these immaculate photos that have won awards. And I'm like, how would I ever be able to find these? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, that's an issue. So like,
Yep.
a lot of it is like, we just got to get our stuff out there. So 90 days, how realistic, like what scenario or what position does somebody have to be in where if they are not really being found in AI search right now, but 90 days later, they are being searched, what foundation do they already have to basically come in with for this to actually be a realistic thing?
Really the only foundation, the requirements are you have a live website and you have a little bit of history online of your business. That means that your Google business profile has been up for a little bit. I mean, if you just started today and you decided to launch a business today, this isn't really for you because you would still have to build your website and start to put the content on your website. So your first 90 days looks a little different.
Let's talk about the trust piece, because I have somebody else that like, let's say today the website's done,
Yeah.
and you have content and you have blogs and all that stuff,
Yep.
but it's a brand new business, brand new domain. Talk a bit about like the trust factor, because I know like we have a client of ours that it's like, hey, this client finally like popped, and it took like 4 months to get to that point because they went from not being ranked at all to all of a sudden being on page 1, but it still took 4 months. So can you talk a bit more about like, because like the way that Google does it, I imagine AI search is very similar, where like, Warren Buffett has that quote that's like, some things take time. You can't have a baby in a month by getting 9 women pregnant.
Yep.
It's like the same idea to a certain extent with Google, and I assume AI search. So can you talk a bit more about like the trust, and like, even if you try to, force your way into it, it still is going to take some time.
Yeah. So that's even getting smarter and smarter, because trust in the past when it comes to Google is really just a formula or an algorithm that they've come up with to determine at the end, what is your kind of trust score based on all these inputs. AI now brings a like thinking layer to that. So they can say, wait a minute, you said you liked dogs, but I just did all this and I didn't see any dogs. So I'm not really going to say that you like dogs. So it has that thinking
Sounds like
capability to it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's not just like shooting out a score based on do they have reviews? Check. Do they have more than 10 reviews? Check. Do they have a award logo on their website? Check. That kind of used to be the way that you build trust the old way. Now it's much harder, like you said, to game the system, because now they're going to go check that website for the certification, and they're going to make sure that you're not just putting the logo on your website. Like, it all has to really connect. So that's the biggest thing. And then just making sure your website is strong in that regard as well. So for example, one of the most crawled pages on a website from AI.
When you say crawled?
Found. So when AI comes in, looks for your content, one of the pages that they're looking for the most, they're not looking at your entire website. Everybody has URLs named differently and everything. A lot of people have an About Us page. The URL is usually about dash us, whatever, something like that. They're going to find that page and crawl it more often than, let's say, one of the blog posts on your site. This is because they want to build that trust to see who is part of this company. What's the kind of story behind it? How, have they won awards? So building out like a robust About Us page can be a great thing. And then also featuring your projects on the site as well, going into depth. So a lot of times we see a portfolio page with 50 photos on it and no information about what the project was, where it was, what it cost, the purpose behind the project, things of that nature. So just making sure your website is kind of ready to get cited before you start going out there and doing the other activities to like get it cited. So
Can you get cited without a website, or like with a very crappy website?
um,
Like let's say I have a terrible website, but I win every single NARI award possible.
yeah,
Could I still get cited and get leads?
yes. On one sense, the look and design of your website when it comes to either Google visiting it or an LLM visiting it, the design doesn't matter so much as the content. So you could have a very simple website. If it's not mobile friendly, it's not going to do good in Google search. So there are aspects that you do need to have. But does it have to be the prettiest website in the world just to get cited? No. Does it need to be pretty to convert a homeowner into a client? Probably.
Okay.
So there is a balance there. But the only type of site that we've seen that struggles, and this struggles in regular search as well, is like a single page site that you just try to put everything on one page. It's usually not very in depth. It's more looking like almost like a landing page for an ads campaign. Those pages are hard to do because, again, there's no depth to the website. There's no, I've gone to the home page and now I'm going to go to another page and look at that page. It's only just one page. So the biggest thing is making sure that your content is accurate. Your there's no real, right now there's no number of pages that you need to have or anything like that.
I'd imagine like you can make it easier where it's like, let's just say like back to the dating example, you could either be attractive or you could be rich. And it's like best case scenario is you're attractive and rich. And
Sure.
now you're appealing to everybody. But if you're really ugly, then you got to be really, really rich, which is kind of like in this boat. Like if your website's bad, you got to win a ton of awards to potentially get picked up versus like if your website's good and you have some awards, that's good.
Yeah.
If your website's amazing and you have a couple awards, maybe so it's almost like a ranking system where it's like the uglier you are, the richer you got to be. But it's the worse your website is, the more awards you have to just naturally win on your own.
Yeah.
But why make it harder on yourself? Because it's hard enough to win awards. Because if you're banking on basically the whole award approach, then what if you don't win it that year? What happens then? So
yeah, the way I kind of think about it is designing your page better doesn't necessarily make the content more true or make you more of an expert. So just proving first that you are like a real expert. I think that's mostly what these AI tools are like geared towards finding, is they know that at the end of the day, they're sending you to me, real interaction, real people, probably going to meet up at your house.
Yeah.
You're probably looking at spending, $50,000 more dollars. So it's like a real big financial purchase. In search for a long time, that's been a category of business that gets scrutinized a little bit more. So that's why it's important for remodelers to show their pricing, show their expertise, show how many years they've been in business, show the awards that they've won, because you're not buying a $20 widget. You're spending a big amount of money. You're having people in your house for months on end. So that's like it's almost like you were, searching for a doctor to do a surgery. Like that's a big deal.
Yeah.
They're going to take that more seriously and you need to prove yourself more.
I got you.
And once you have that down, then yes, like make the site look great, do all that stuff to, increase your brand and everything like that, increase your conversions. But when it comes to like trust in an LLM or a search engine, it's more about the content. It's more about what you're kind of saying about yourself.
Got it. Okay. So let's go to those first 30 days. So the first thing that you talk about is running an LLM, and just for everybody's sense, for a large language model, but we're kind of using that interchangeably with like LLM versus like AI search, because AI search could be ChatGPT, it could be Gemini, it could be Perplexity. All of those are LLMs. So if we say LLM or AI search, assume it's basically the same thing.
It's the same thing. There's a little caveat where There's two kind of types of data that you can get back from, let's say, ChatGPT. One is what it knows about you in its training data. So when they come out with their new model, 5.5 just came out, that means it has more training data than it did before. So the cutoff is sometime this year. Whereas
So that means like if it's like, okay, let's just call it Jan 1, 2026 was the cutoff. That means that any data, any information, unless it's going out to the internet, it's going to say, this is what's stored in my Rolodex of information. But if you ask me what happened on January 2nd, 2026, I have no idea.
Exactly.
Okay.
So when you turn off like the web search capability in ChatGPT, you're basically just asking it for information from its training data. So that's one thing you can do. You turn that off and you say, what do you know about my business? It's either going to spit back some information. It could be maybe out of date information because it hasn't caught up to this year and you did a rebrand or something like that. So it might be old, or it's going to say, I don't really know anything about your business. So that's one thing. Turning web search on now introduces a new capability to ChatGPT, which is it's now going to do some searches for you. It's going to go out on Google, it's going to use Bing, and it's going to find up-to-date information, synthesize that back to you in the form of an answer. So there's two types of getting found in LLM is, am I in the training data? It doesn't know anything about me to begin with. Number two is when it goes and does a search, like who does remodeling in my area, am I getting found and kind of presented in the answer? So that's why traditional SEO still matters a ton, because for most searches you're doing on these AI search platforms, it's doing that search for you in the back end on Google and just presenting you with the answer.
Or on the training data, I guess the only way that the training data would be able to find you is the same thing. It's just they have a cutoff, and then now it's just like, this is what has been stored.
Yep, a cutoff. And then it's also based a little bit on, site authority and things of that nature, where if you are a brand new website, even if they go and do a new set of training data, if you're brand new, if you're not really out there, you're still not going to show up in it.
Sure.
So it's a long-term play. It's kind of like the play for the rest of the decade, really, is to just start building up that kind of corpus of data that you have based on your 30 years of remodeling experience. Not really thinking about it like, will someone ever come to this blog post and read this whole article? Forget about that. Put it out there as a data point so that, when someone does search for something that you do, it can use that as a piece of evidence that you're the trusted person, essentially.
Yeah, I almost look at it as like the homeowner's agent. Like now, like a lot of times I don't go to Google and type something in. I just go to Claude, or I go to ChatGPT. I mostly use Claude, but I'm like, tell me about this. Or I use Gemini. So I'm like, you figure it out for me, but I'm not actually going to the live thing. I'm having it turn it back to me. Now, if I'm like looking for a restaurant or something that's like more of like, I'm going to buy this thing, then I'm definitely going to go at this point to Gemini.
Yeah.
But I mean, I kind of live in like Claude. So like, and just so everybody knows, I didn't realize this when I thought everybody that like is an entrepreneur, I was like, everybody knows AI really well. And I was talking to my younger brother you think they're younger than you. It's funny because, you talk to somebody else and like, oh yeah, Gen Z, which he's not, but Gen Z, like they grew up with AI. They know how to use this stuff. They're good. I was talking to TJ, my little brother, a couple months ago, and he's, owns a business. I thought he's pretty hip on all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, how much Claude are you using? He was like, who's that? I was like, Claude.
Yeah.
You know what Claude is? He was like, are you saying Claw? And I was like, no, I'm saying Claude. He was like, no, I don't know what that is. And I was like, do you know what ChatGPT is? He's like, oh yeah, I mean, I know what that is, but I've never used it. I'm like, you're 30.
Yeah.
Like, how have you never used this before? Like, my Claude, I mean, I speak to it because it's like, it's faster, but just so everybody knows, when we're saying this, Claude is one of these LLMs that you get to interact with that can do all this stuff as well. It's basically like a ChatGPT, but just a different version of a very similar thing. Just to kind of put that out there in case you're probably like, what does this stuff mean? So when I say Claude, I mean, like, I'm saying, hey, Claude, talk to me about herringbone versus, subway tile backsplash. I'm not at that point, I'm not like, oh, I'm going to go explore these websites. It's more so, it's almost like my quote unquote agent is going out and doing it for me and bringing it, synthesizing it back to me. Be like a designer that's like, I'm going to go out and get tile and actually bring it back to your house. I don't then go, well, where'd you get it from? Oh, at the tile store. Show me the tile store. Let's go there. I'm like, I don't care where you get it from. Just make sure that it's good tile from a credible place. So that way, if there's an issue, I can go back and get the warranty on it. And then you bring it back to me. But if I'm now going to be like, all right, I'm going to go buy a bunch of tile, I actually want to go to the tile shop and make sure that it's legit. So it's almost like when you're saying this to me, it's like, don't necessarily worry about, you're going to write this and go, is this going to get, is everybody going to look at it and they're going to love it? Now, talk to me a bit more about, okay, great. If that's the case, why can't you just hammer a bunch of blog posts out there? Like, does quality of these things still matter, or is it quantity only?
So, quality still matters, and quantity matters on the lower side, because at the end of the day,
like, it matters less.
Like, it matters. You want to do quantity matters because you don't want to do more than what's going to basically. Let me rephrase. AI search is still using Google.
Okay.
Google has terms of service.
Okay.
To show up in Google's index, you need to follow those terms of service. One of those things that they say you can't do is create a bunch of kind of useless to the internet pages just for the sake of getting search traffic. Okay. Now, sounds like that's what SEO is. But really what they're looking for is you to create unique, helpful content. And if you do that, then that content will end up ranking or be in the index in some point. So the AI is still using that index to find the content that it's synthesizing. It's not it doesn't crawl. They're not storing their own. It's way too expensive. Like OpenAI is actively losing money monthly. They don't have the infrastructure. So Google has 30 years of search experience, floating data centers. They want to put stuff up in space, and like they have this huge $1 trillion infrastructure for search
that like stores all this information.
So Claude's just going out and searching on Google for you. So if you do things that are going to penalize your website from showing up on Google, that's going to have retroactive negative effects on you getting found in AI.
Okay, so it's kind of like Uber doesn't have their own cars. And if you need to have enough cars that Uber's like, okay, this fleet they have enough that we could fulfill all of our customers, because if this fleet doesn't have enough, then our customers are going to be pissed off, and then they're going to end up going over to Lyft. But if you say, great, I'm going to give you like a ton of cars, but they're all crap, then again, the people using Uber are going to hate, well, these are a bunch of crap cars. I know that there's a plethora of them, but like they all suck. You kind of want to find that sweet spot of, it needs to be enough that Google is, or that Claude is able to trust you in Google.
Yeah.
If you just game it, then it's going to probably be crap, which then Google's not going to want to rank it. And then at which point, Gemini and Claude and ChatGPT, they're not even going to find it anyway.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So with the 30 days, how do you actually do like a visibility audit on your company? And when we say visibility, is that just like how much are you showing up? Like what does that even mean?
Yeah, so it's been a little bit tough. That because it's so new, because, wanting to know where you're cited as a business on AI search is kind of a new concept. There has been some tools that come out to track that. The issue has been that because your personalization is different than my personalization,
meaning what if you and I both did the exact same search in our own Claude accounts, and we both said, who is a great remodeler in Charlotte?
Yep.
Mine knows so much about me, and I have 2 young kids, and you have 2 older kids.
Yep.
So like somebody who specializes in and talks about on their website, like, hey, when it comes to building, we are really big into families that have younger kids. These are all the specific things that we do.
Right.
While in your case, it may be like, hey, one of the things that we do for all the people that we build for is we send them to Disney World. My kids are too young for Disney World, but yours are not. So basically, if we both did that exact same search, we're probably going to get 2 very different sets of answers, even though it's the exact same search on paper.
Right. Which has been a little bit different than tracking search results traditionally. Because we would probably get a very similar top 10,
Right.
businesses or websites ranked.
But Google still tried to
little bit.
personalize it, but it's not as
Yeah,
in
they're getting
depth.
better with the Gemini stuff built in because they're able to add that more, but it was always, if you do all the SEO stuff right, you're going to be the number one found, and everyone in the area will see the same basic results.
So something that I've been like telling people is like, what you should do is instead of like trying to game like who's a good remodeler, it's almost like start off with like saying, this is my company. What do you actually know about me?
Yep.
Is that accurate? Like, is that like a good way to at least get like a sense of like, first off, does it even know if I exist or not? And second off, what does it think about me and to what depth? And like that way it's like an understanding of like, before I go, great, am I showing up for these things? It's more about like, what do you even know? Because that's going to kind of get me maybe halfway there to figuring out, is my website or is my online presence doing a good enough job to get found?
Exactly. And you would want to do that search with the web search tool off and then on. So you can see what's in your training data and then what they find out about you on the internet.
And if you built a website after the training data, or let's just say you started coming after training data, it's not like there's nothing you can do until the next set of training data.
Exactly.
Anyway. Okay.
Yep. And that's
All right.
why it's important to start publishing content.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So with that, you start off with like, what do you know about me? It gives you all this information back. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. You can ask questions around it. Let's just flip it over to then like, okay, do you also suggest like, hey, you should actually ask what people are probably typing into Google right now, which could be like good remodeling company near me. Is that a good way to at least have an understanding of like who is showing up? Or is that also like, because maybe it knows I'm a remodeler. So if it knows I keep going to my own website or it, like it knows that kind of stuff, is that going to skew it or like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, that's why some of those tools I think like came out because they're able to not really use your account to do the search. Like you put in those things and it uses anonymous accounts essentially.
Yeah.
But again, that introduces the issue of now you're seeing, okay, anonymously I do show up, but most people are logged into their thing.
Right.
So that's why it's just been a little bit more of a kind of see if you are there, but don't worry about if you show up fourth in one search and then second in another one, or, they change all the time. And studies have even shown that if you do the same search on, let's say, Google and get an AI overview, a couple minutes later, if you do that exact same search, you're going to get a slightly different AI overview.
Got it.
They're either testing stuff on the back end to see which one you liked better, or just because it's kind of AI driven, it's not really like deterministic, it's more probabilistic. So it's like using probability to come up with the answer, which is never going to be like the exact same words every single time.
I got you. Okay. So because also like on the personalization side, if it's anonymous versus maybe mine is anonymous, but the only thing I've ever typed in one time was like, I have 2 kids, it would still kind of tweak the answers a little bit because it's like, okay, I know you have 2 kids. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So it really sounds like the content part is like the big thing of like that's going to help with that quote unquote personalization. So let's say they go off, they do this searches that are like a combination of what do you know about me? Then on the other side, they go, okay, who's the best person for this? Who's the best person for that? And what you're saying is, don't worry so much right now about who is showing up number one, because basically the searches are all so different based off of the back story to these or like to these accounts that ultimately, even if I typed in a quote unquote anonymous chat, who's the best, remodeler in Charlotte, and I'm like, oh shoot, my company is number 5, somebody else that is looking up the exact same search, I could be number 1 much easier just because of how their personalization on their account is set up.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to get into like your ideal customer. And that's why we, at CGM, we dive really deep into that for every project, because from there you can start to kind of reverse engineer. Okay, if I know and when we say ideal customer, that doesn't mean homeowner in my area. It means specifically, is it a family? Is it a aging in place situation? You can start to say, reverse engineer. Okay, if it's a young family that is, constantly I'm doing work for, what types of searches would those people be searching for versus if it's aging in place projects that I'm always doing work for, what types of searches are happening there. And then you can kind of put content on your site to match that. So if it's young families, have blog content about, how kids' school schedules aren't interrupted by remodeling projects, or, how to deal with kids and pets in the home and stuff like that. If it's aging in place, you're doing content around that. So really thinking through about who is actually doing the search. You're not going to know about all their personalization stuff, of course, but just based on, the neighborhoods you want to go after, the type of, homeowner, family, whatever, you can start to kind of think about, what are those people searching? And, if I had to put in a really long search as that homeowner, what would I put in? And just start to play around with it. I mean, you can do a million ChatGPT conversations. So just open it up and start to kind of play around with it and see if you do remodeler near me, do you see kind of the same generic businesses that you might see if you did that search directly on Google Maps? If you do remodeler near me that specializes in families and does awesome home additions, with huge windows, like that search, you're going to see a different search result there. So part of it is just kind of like experimenting and playing around with it.
Okay, so let's say you do all those and you realize like I'm probably not showing up as much as I wish I was. At least, maybe I'm really good at like, I know my ideal client is a young growing family and I love doing home additions and I love opening up the space and making it feel lighter. I love doing skylights and big windows. So basically like that last example that you just gave, let's say I'm not showing up for that. I know we keep talking about the word blogs. Talk to me a bit more about like service pages. Like what is, because I was like talking to somebody the other day and we were talking about doing these project pages, like, where it's like, we did this project in this area. Here's all the information. He was like, why do I then need a service page in each, location that I serve if I already have a page that talks about the project? So I explained the difference of intent, where one's like, we did this thing, it's great, but it's different than somebody who's saying, I want somebody that does this in this area. So can you talk a bit more about like, if you want to get found for, hey, I want somebody who does this, this, and this, should you only do project pages? Should you add some of that stuff to a service page? What is the difference there? Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah. So really you want all those types of content on your site. You want service pages because that identifies to search engines, to, AI search, actually what you do.
Like what service you sell. Yeah.
So it's not a specific project, because if you're just detailing one specific project, it's going to get very specific about that. You're probably putting how much that project cost, where it happened, what materials you used, which is not going to be the same data for every single project that you do.
Right.
So the service page handles the fact that you do kitchen remodeling, and it shows your process, and it shows, the different ways that you go about that service. The project page now dives deep into a actual project that you did that service.
Okay. So like project page, maybe like we just did this home edition, boom, boom, boom. It costs $450,000, but your service page says we like to do home editions. For most of them, we do, open it up, skylights, that kind of stuff. They typically range between $250 and $500. Where if I'm now a homeowner going, I want to get a new home edition and my max budget's $300, who do I go with? If I just had that project page, that's fine. I mean, it just shows that. But the service page is the one that's actually saying these are our ranges. This is typically how long it's going to take. So if that same $450,000 home edition page says, and this thing took 6 months, and then I'm saying, hey, I want this thing done by Labor Day, which is 3 months out. And then on that service page, it says, and they typically take between 2 and 6 months. Now that service page is basically saying more like broad of, this is a service that we do in this area, and here's a bunch of information around it. So that way you're able to get like 90% of the way there to see, is this going to be a good fit or not? But then the actual project page is more of like proof and specific data that says, hey, we have done this thing before. Come check this out.
Yeah. And so like, let's take just example, you want to rank on Google Maps with your Google business profile. If you put in your categories that you do kitchen remodeling, you should have a kitchen remodeling service page on your site. Google is looking for that connection.
Got it.
And on the flip side of that, you don't want to get into, our herringbone subway backsplash example. If you put that on your service page, do you do that in every single project that you do? Probably not. So the featured project page is really an opportunity to
Like expand.
go into
Yeah.
depth on that project and get all those little details, the finishes that you use, and all those little things in there.
So what should a service page have on? I know this is kind of piggybacking off SEO as well, but it all goes together. How do you like the way that I explain to people is like a service page is meant to have the things that somebody who is that would ask you in person, like, hey, tell me more about this kitchen remodeling service that you provide, and you have to kind of give like your 60-second elevator pitch on what you do, why you do it, how you do it, that kind of stuff. Is that best practices to on a service page to get found in like AI search, or like how do we approach it?
Yeah, so it's in depth about you can go into your, there's unique things about your business because you've been doing it for so long. Maybe your process is really good, getting into your process, showing off, pricing, whether you have different tiers that you do or how you go about pricing. It's not the exact pricing for a particular project that would be on a featured project page. You would say this one cost $102,000. On your service page, you would be showing more of like what goes into when you do pricing, what are the pricing options, things of that nature. So it's not just like one specific instance that you did that service. It's a more broad kind of stroke across, okay, how could now I want to see some examples. Let me click into an actual project page to see how this one went. Do I like the pictures? Am I in the same budget range? That type of thing.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So that's in the first 30 days is basically do a baseline. There's other things with it, but just for sake of like how deep do we go? Because you could spend, do a 12-hour podcast, which basically then goes back to like the history of how SEO came to be. But so get your baseline down, figure out what it knows about you, ask a bunch of questions that your ideal client's probably wondering as well. And I know we are also coming out with a tool that basically you can put in your information and it'll tell you from an anonymous standpoint across these different services or different LLMs what does it know about you, and then it'll even say this is now what you should probably focus on if you want to actually get found for those things.
Yeah.
But focus on what it knows, ask those questions, make sure your website's you're starting to have a service page that answers the questions that people are probably asking or want to know about that specific service. That's going to be a good start to that first 30 days, if you will.
Yep. It's very similar to SEO. If you don't have a good, strong kind of technical foundation, website up, website good, pages are good, pages that you need are there. Like that's where you need to start for all this stuff. So just getting kind of your ducks in a row is the most important thing that you can do before just publishing new content or whatever you're going to do.
Perfect. All right. So let's go like to the next, let's say we nail that down.
Yep.
Now it's day 31. Talk to me a bit more. We have talk about specific structured numbers when it comes to what you're talking about on your website. So walk me through it. Like, we talked about specific numbers on feature project pages. Is it just like more of that, or is it also like articles around cost and things like that?
Yeah. So the more you can, again, prove your expertise in this kind of industry or your what you're kind of selling, the better. So that data can come in the form of, going deep into cost in an article and showing tables and what was involved and maybe a comparison between two projects. That's really good data. That's kind of unique first-party data, which all these tools are always looking for. The other thing is putting, on your homepage, how many years have you been in business? Awards that you may have won, certifications that you have, these different kind of data points that can just kind of, again, everything online is evidence towards, Google wants to select the best business, the best answer for a question. It needs to have the evidence to back that up, which is not one mention on your website, just on your homepage. We have 500 reviews. You have 500 reviews on your homepage, you have a reviews page, you have a couple of featured project pages that have testimonials on them, you have a Google business profile that has reviews, you have a house profile that has reviews. So it's kind of that full ecosystem of what you can do. And then getting into, again, in this next 30 days, I would be focused on that content.
Talk about like the sales call, like either recordings or FAQs, because I know that's something that we do at CGN, but like talk a bit more about that.
Yeah. So traditionally, when we've been looking at blog kind of topics or keywords to go after in search. It's always been really volume based. You know, what's the number one keyword that people are typing in, and I need to rank for that keyword to get some traffic to my site. Now, with the fact that people are using AI search and you don't really need as much traffic as you do qualified clicks. Like if you took 90% of the traffic out of your website, it's probably people that were never going to buy, browsing, bots, whatever it is. So that last 10% of the traffic is really where you made all your money. Now that 10% are the people that are coming to your site. You're just not seeing that other 90% now, which is fine. So how that has shifted is now, instead of just saying, I'm going to go only after keywords that I know get search volume, is I'm going to present information on my website that people ask me all the time. Every single sales call I get on, people are always asking me, do you guys clean up after you finish a job? So putting information out like that, whether it's you can decide, is the answer to this question a couple sentences? Can I get it done in a couple sentences? Maybe that's a FAQ that you go and add to your service page. Is it something that I need to go more in depth on? Maybe that's an article that you now put in your blog.
And is the reason, because like this is like the whole premise of like They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan, but is the reason like, yeah, everybody always asks me on a sales call, like, do you clean up? Is the reason that we wouldn't typically write about that one, because if you go and see what are people searching for in my area, the amount of people that are Googling, does a remodeler clean up after themselves? It's either zero or it's next to nothing, that it's not, the juice is not worth the squeeze to write that article. That's historically, if it was just straight up a Google and SEO play, we would not have done it. But now it's even more important, because yes, it was important for the website and for conversion and people that are like browsing, turning into a customer. But now it's like AI is going to pick up on that. So if it knows, hey, that's important to Logan and Audrey, then we're going to go ahead and make sure that we mention that as well.
Right. So if you're in a chat with ChatGPT and you mention, we want to get some remodeling done, had a really bad experience last time, they trashed my house, and like if it knows about you in that full conversation. So did someone search for remodelers near me that clean up after they're done? No. But because you have content on your site that talks about it, now in an AI conversation where you've already mentioned that the last people that came to remodel, messed up your doorways and, scraped your walls and did all this kind of stuff, it puts that into its kind of ability to synthesize. So now when it suggests someone to you, it's going to maybe suggest you more because you did put that content out.
Okay.
So Logan won't have a bad time on this time because he mentioned the only thing wrong the last time was they messed up his house leaving. So now we don't want that to happen again. So we're going to present answers or companies that won't do that, essentially.
Got it. So basically what you're saying is the questions that you're going to guess, whether they're big questions or little questions or one-offs, still having those online that these AI searches or, AI platforms can find is important, because maybe that one-off person, like, hey, the last person I had was terrible. I need to find somebody who's good this time. And if somebody's website addresses, hey, you've probably dealt with this specific thing, this is how we proactively address it.
Yep.
That way it's going to basically come in and say, hey, Patrick, I know the last time that you worked with a remodeler, they basically left you all the excess material that you had to lug off to the dump yourself. This company talks about on, in a quick FAQ, what do we do with the extra material?
Exactly.
Not only do they get rid of it, but they actually then return it back to the supply house and then provide you with a refund for it. And now you're like, oh, that's like two birds, one stone. That's perfect.
Yep.
Got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's why, Google has come out with some data around, people are seeing their impressions go down and their traffic to their website go down and things of that nature. And like, oh man, what's going on? Google has come out with data. Of course, it's Google. So, that shows that you may be getting less clicks from search, but those clicks that now you're getting are the most qualified, the people that are actually going to buy it from you.
Yeah.
So if we took out 90% of your website traffic today and left only the 10% of people that were actually going to fill out your contact form and be a real lead, you'd be probably fine with that. So they're seeing that because this they're surfacing businesses that are more in tune with the personalization of the person that's searching. Once they do finally click through, they're clicking through for a reason, not just to find out if there's a reason. So the clicks are down, the traffic's down, but the qualification of that traffic that is coming in is way up.
Got it. So can you talk a bit more about, like, on the same lens or same mindset? Like here at CGN, like we had like this client brain, and this is something we've been building out for the past few months. It's a pretty extensive project, but to me, what we're talking about right now is pretty much in line with what the client brain is meant to do, where basically we call it client brain, but it's, well, you explain it. Tell the world, what is the client brain?
So really it's a library of information about our clients, that is able to be searched and sourced from, by the different LLM tools that we're using, things of that nature, so that we can get really accurate information into content, into our marketing strategy overall. So in the course of every kind of marketing project, tons of data comes in, your pricing, your projects, your photos, your everything that you've said on phone calls about strategy. That stuff gets traditionally easily missed, filed in a Google Drive folder somewhere, probably never opened again. Yeah. So what we're doing is now taking all of that data that we have for each project and putting it in a kind of external library, where we're now able to take Claude or take ChatGPT and say, has this client ever done a remodeling project in this area, and was it under, $100,000, which is a very specific search that you need to do. Looking through a 2-hour transcript for those words is almost impossible. So what we're doing is using this new kind of technology that's out there, the same way that ChatGPT works, when it comes up with an answer for you, is basically connecting the dots between information. So if I have one Google Doc that says, from a year ago that says one pricing, and I've got a new updated pricing sheet from this year, if I just maybe searched in my drive for the word pricing, it would bring up both, and I'd have to open both docs and go through it and see what the most accurate thing was. With this new system, we're able to now make that determination much faster and kind of programmatically, so that we only get the most relevant answers back.
And for us, like, to give you an example of what this does is, like, we have, like, one of our clients, Rainy Blair Weidman, we have this whole, like they have their own client branch. So each one of our clients has like their own basically stored Rolodex of information. So I just said, okay, great. If you were to write a bunch of blogs for them, it needs to be one written about a topic that they would bring up. And instead of us having to go back and go, hey, what do you want to write about next? Or us going to Google and saying, hey, what are people searching for? If we're basically now saying, based off all the conversations that we've ever had with them and all this other information from like search data and all that stuff, what would they want to write about? It will then say, these are the articles that they would want to write about, that they would want to get found for. And this is now what it entails. So I'll give you, like, I'll read out what one of them would be, is why a whole home remodel can cost $500,000, which typically in a Google search, whole home remodel $500,000 is not going to be something somebody searches for.
Yeah.
But if there's something that's like talking through what's it cost, well, this article could get cited. So what this tool does, because we built the whole thing out, would then say, okay, great. If you're going to write an article that talks all about why a whole home remodel can cost $500,000, you would want to then talk about, first, what counts as a whole home remodel and what doesn't. Second, where the $500,000 actually go with labor, materials, permits, design, all that sort of stuff. Next, why moving walls could double the budget. Next, what a $500,000 whole home remodel is going to look like here in this specific town. Next is when a whole home remodel is actually the right call versus you just moving. And then how to tell if a remodeling firm is underquoting your scope. So that right there all would be encompassed under the article. That's why a whole home remodel can cost $500,000. And basically, Google would never tell you to write that. And even if I went back to Peter and Scott and Dan and said, hey, what should we write about next? And they're like, I don't know, like maybe a cost of something. It wouldn't get to that specificity because basically it would be a lot of back and forth to go, well, what if we also mention this? And what if we also mention that? Or you tell us how you would explain this to this one article, explain this to somebody, and it would be an hour of them explaining the whole thing. And then we'd have to go, well, how do we now whittle this down into a 1,500 word blog post that then gets found by AI and all that kind of stuff? This now is basically saying, hey, we know so much about them and their clientele and how they think and how they speak. And then it's also trained on their brand voice because we have all the transcripts. So when they explain things, do they say the word subs? Do they say the word trade partners? Do they say vendors?
Exactly.
All that stuff. So now when an article comes out, it is written as if they themselves wrote it. And a lot of times, because I do this like with CGN, is I have all of our sales calls recorded. I'm like, what does the next newsletter need to be about? And it's like, well, actually, the last 5 sales calls that you had all focus on this one thing. Do you want me to write it for you? So it's a whole thing that we built out that then goes out to the market. But now it's almost like it's just taking the data and then making it easier to then say, well, this is what you should now write about. And it's cool. It makes it so much easier, but it all comes down to like, for us, we have our own sales calls recorded. So now, like little by little, we're going to start to go out to clients and go, great, can we get call recordings and, ways that we can keep this data trained. So if you now go out and say, oh, the way that I explained this thing landed really well on this client. Well, we already know that because we see it in the transcript of how you explained it, how the client then reacted to it. We're like, oh, that's a great analogy. That then gets added into that client's client brain. So then we write a blog post that talks all about that specific thing. It potentially could bring up that analogy because it seemed like it landed really well.
Yep. And it kind of moves us away from this like keyword matching, like you talked about. Google would want to see a blog post with the, $500,000 kitchen in the blog title or whatever. With this new system, we're moving more towards like the relationship between words and kind of like the meaning behind them. So if the question is $500,000 kitchen, but on every call with our client, they said 500K kitchen. If you were just keyword matching, you may not find that because it doesn't say dollars. So with this CGN brain that we're building, we're really using kind of like the relationship between almost words and ideas to find the right information. So we're not just saying, did they ever mention the word pricing? We're asking about pricing and costs. And because they could say pricing or costs or dollars or estimate or final payment, whatever they said, we're going to locate that information within kind of their brain.
Because I know in part of this as well is something that I brought up was like, oh, we could write this. And you're like, well, actually, what you could also write is an article that just says like, what does a whole home remodel cost? And then you could have section 1. This is what you would get for 100,000. This is what you get for 200,000. This is what you get for, so it's like each section would almost be a price point there. So if I then went in and said, hey, I got quoted $625,000 for a whole home remodel, unless somebody wrote an article right now in Google that said, why does it cost $625,000? Like,
Yep.
This, it would then be able to read this and go, well, instead of ranking the whole article for just this one term, it would know, like Google or Gemini would know, okay, this article talks about a $600,000 and a $700,000 remodel, whole home remodel. Let me now figure out what the differences are between the two and then return the answer back to Patrick and say, hey, Patrick, this one company says this is what the difference between $600,000 and $700,000 is. What you're talking about with your $625,000 one, for that company, you're actually probably looking closer to $800,000. In fact, in that same article, they even talk about how do you know when your person is underbidding the job, and it talks about these things. Do you want to upload your scope of work? And I'll check it out. So like, it can now read it in like what's called chunks, not just like the over. Like you don't have to write one article
page for keywords.
Yeah, it's not like, why does it cost $100,000? Next article, why does it cost $200,000? You can now, like Wikipedia, put it all within one article, and because the AI knows, all right, I'm going to go 4,018 words deep to find this answer, because it has it all stored and it's super smart. Now you can almost have more in-depth articles. It sounds like if that's like the case.
Yep. And so like on just a technical point of that, like Google has always kept an index of the pages on the website. I mean, on the internet. So when you get into their index or you get a page index, that full page, let's say it looks like a spreadsheet, you are added to a new row on that spreadsheet. So you're now in the index. What they have now is a chunked index. So your whole page doesn't show up in there, but 4 sentences that you wrote that were great about why a kitchen costs $625,000 in a full article is getting all those pieces are getting indexed themselves. So when someone searches for that, they don't need to go and like read your article again and like find that section that spits out that answer. So thinking about it in a way of putting information out there, but not, some questions that we come across aren't really like a full article. You don't need to have 2,000 words to answer the question. So whether it's, going back to old ranking articles about the same topic and adding some more FAQs or updating the information, it doesn't always have to be like pushing out a new page to get indexed. It can be, updating a particular paragraph with maybe you wrote it 2 years ago and things have changed. So looking at it like that to like, is this paragraph as good as it can be, essentially?
Yeah. And I know, like, so with this one, it's like maybe you're like, well, that sounds like a lot of energy and effort. What could you be doing right now in that 30 to 60 or 31 to 60 days? That to me, the answer would be like start to, have like a call recording, like phone system set up because, the more that you can record this stuff, like we are fortunate that like we have years of recordings that we are able to like train it on to say, this is how CGN works. This is how we explain things, stuff like that. I was talking to, Andrew, like one of our clients, the other day, and he was like, I don't have all my calls recorded, but we have thousands of YouTube videos that explain projects and features. Could you guys use that to train our client brain on it? And I was like, 100%, because it's basically like thousands and thousands of hours of them explaining things and highlighting things and how they say things and how all that kind of stuff. So like YouTube, I know, is like a pretty underrated feature. Yes, for our client brain is very helpful because like I also like when I wanted to write like Logan, I had it trained on, hey, go to my Slack, go to my email, go listen to all these podcasts that are all transcribed, figure out how Logan speaks. And then I've also had it trained on like, if you want to speak like a remodeler, go listen to all these different podcasts and listen to how the remodelers talk about it as well. So it's like you can train it on that kind of stuff. So YouTube's helpful for that. But I know YouTube's also pretty helpful for just getting found in AI search as well, even without this quote unquote client brain, correct?
Yeah, for sure. And especially with some tools over others, like, if you're using Perplexity, if you're using even like AI overviews on traditional Google are showing a ton of YouTube videos. What they're mostly doing is scraping the transcript and again, chunking it down. So finding, think of it as like 200 to 300 word sections. So they're able to now not only show you that video as a search result, but also the exact minute or second in that video where the person is talking about the answer that you're mostly concerned about. So you don't have to, sift through 10 videos, watch them, and try to find where they end up talking about, there's chapters and all that kind of stuff. But this is actually getting you right to the point of the video where your question is getting answered.
Perfect. So in days 31 through 60, best thing is going to be, okay, up to day 30, we already figured out what it knows and what it doesn't know about us. Day 31 through 60, from what it sounds like and what I guess my side of things would be like, worst case scenario, get call recording set up. Best case, you start a YouTube channel and then you're able to take your call recordings that you're just starting and then actually figure out, okay, what FAQs are coming from this. And that way you can then update your service pages and your website with more specific things. But in the very least, even if you're like, it's the busy season, I got a lot of stuff going on, I don't have time to think about this stuff. Worst case scenario, you can come, get your stuff started to be recorded, because now it's a game of almost like first party information.
Yep.
Where maybe it's like getting professionally shot photos. Like maybe you don't build a bunch of campaigns with those photos right now, but it's so much harder to go back in like the winter time and go, how do I do all this stuff? Shoot, I should have gotten those professionally shot photos, and now you're stuck with nothing.
Right.
So let's talk about day 61 through 90, which is a lot about like citation. So let's assume you're on this path, you have somebody that's doing all this stuff for you, and they're like, great, I'm all set up for the first 60 days. Talk a bit more about the amplification and citation side of things.
Yeah, so this is where you want to start thinking about getting your content spread across the internet, not just focused on your website.
Because up until this point, it's mostly been like, do this on your website because that's also like in your direct control and
Right.
things like that.
Yep, and I would probably lump your Google Business Profile in with that as well. So when those two things are set up and good to go and you're publishing content, now you can start to think about kind of spreading your influence onto some other platforms. You know, let's talk about reviews. You've built up a good amount of reviews on your Google Business Profile. Homeowners are also looking at House and Angie and some of these other big sites as well. Your Facebook page. So now starting to think about getting people to leave reviews on those platforms spreads your kind of realm of influence, which just makes it, again, more pieces of evidence for the AI to pick you. It needs evidence. Your website's great. Your Google Business Profile is great. What other pieces of evidence can you put out there on the internet? And there's communities like Reddit where people are actually asking real questions every day.
What is there like? Why would you not do that like on day one as well? Like if Reddit's there, is it just more of like, hey, if you had endless or if you had like an abundance of time,
Sure.
you could do it all at once. But basically, it's kind of like get your own, like put your own oxygen mask on first,
Yes.
which is your website, your reviews, basically things that are within your control. But then come the last 30-day sprint, that's like, you can't force your way into winning an award that mentions you, or like you can't force your way into like, oh, a subreddit popped up that I should answer. It's so now we're getting into like your home base is covered. Let's now go off into expansion mode, if you will.
Yep.
Okay.
And one Reddit comment or post or multiple without a good website or without a website is not really going to do much for you.
Yeah. Okay.
So doing things kind of in the right order has always been a big piece. And then these tools have, made partnerships like, Reddit and OpenAI, I believe, have a, partnership where money is exchanged and the full kind of Reddit fire hose is opened on the back end to OpenAI. So it's, it doesn't have to go out and search on Google and find a Reddit post and read it. Like, it's not working like that. It's using that as like a separate
one of the
index of information, basically. And there's lots of sites like that. There's, Quoted, and there's Quora, and there's Yahoo Answers has always been a thing. So again, while answering a question on that platform may not directly like get you a lead from someone reading it, and maybe it will, maybe it won't. It's just building up those little bits of information to, again, prove that you're this trusted person that I can come spend thousands of dollars with, invite you into my home, have face-to-face interactions.
It sounds like it's almost like the billboard where it's like, if you're going to go into a, let's just say an architect's office or an interior designer's office to like say, hey, I'm Logan, I do really good work, I would love to partner with you on stuff. If you have a billboard and they're like, oh, I've seen your billboard before, it helps that much more versus you walking in cold. The billboard by itself is probably not going to go, oh, I got to call that guy right now.
Yep.
It's more of, I've seen you, I've heard about you. It's almost like it sounds like a branding play more so that just like, and it helps these LLMs or AI search tools go, oh, this person just doesn't have just a great website. They've won awards. They've been on podcasts. They have a YouTube channel. They have these external things that they don't have direct control over all the time, but because they've done it long enough,
Yep.
It builds and builds and builds. On top of that, they have a great website with great reviews. Man, they seem holistically great. We should probably recommend them.
Yep. Okay. That's the gist of it, really. And the bonus is, maybe that Reddit comment in the Denver, subreddit does get you a job because they're looking for contractors, and, you answered the question and, someone clicked on your profile. Like, it can lead to some jobs as well. But just kind of like thinking about all these tools as kind of evidence gathering machines, and your job is to go put the evidence out there for it to pick you. like a same way a murder trial is. Like, if you're going to convict, like the evidence has to be strong and we all have to agree on it. So
Yeah.
if the LLM has the evidence and everything kind of agrees, which is why, like, we go back to, your citations or your local listings. If they all kind of have a different phone number on them or something, like all the evidence doesn't agree.
Yeah.
So it's going to be less secure about presenting you as an answer.
What about joining like NARI or Chamber of Commerce? Like, are those signals that AI would go, oh, this is pretty good too? Like, we see that they're like part of an association. We know that association. We trust the association. And because they're part of this association, that's pretty good.
Yep. So bonus side of that, it also boosts your kind of local SEO efforts as well. You typically get a link from those websites when you get a profile on there. You get a kind of what's called we've used the word citation, but this is kind of in the local SEO world when you get your name and your address and your kind of phone number listed. So all those things can kind of, again, half of the goal is to get the LLM to trust you as a business. Half of the goal is still to rank on Google so that when it goes and does its Google searches, you also appear there. And when it does its Google search, your website appears. And when it finds house, lists out their top 15 remodelers in the area or whatever those pages are, you're listed there as well. So now it has 2 bits of evidence in that one search to say, okay, we're going to recommend this person.
Yeah.
So it's just like building up that, it's almost like what SEO was always supposed to be, was you putting out great content, you proving that you're an expert, and naturally they're going to recommend you. Like there's no reason not to.
Yeah. It almost sounds like it's like in court, like you're proving, like you talk about like the burden of proof or the proof part. Like it almost sounds like you're building a case.
Yep.
Where it's like you have so much evidence that if you're, the prosecutor and the defense comes up and says this one thing, you already have a rebuttal because, maybe you don't lead with that individual piece of evidence, but if they go, oh, by the way, we have testimony that you were at the scene of the crime, and you're like, I knew you were going to do that. Here's actually evidence of the alibi that, shows better. It's almost like you're building an entire case, and
Yep.
you don't, shotgun all the evidence all at once. You kind of build your story from there, but you have it all ready to rock. But in this case, the AI search is like looking at all the evidence at once, and they're just like, this guy's not guilty. Like,
Yep.
just let him go.
Yeah.
So
and that's what it adds is that kind of thinking intelligence layer, because Google has always done that. But again, it was in a kind of algorithm format where it was, does he have reviews? Check. Does, so it's, the evidence was out there. Does he have a backlink from this website? Okay, that's a piece of evidence to trust him more. But again, easily gamed, and that's why there's Google updates, and that's why they continue to like adjust things, because people are like, okay, let me go just make a bunch of backlinks.
Yeah.
Let me go publish a bunch of content. So then they come up with ways, well, we're going to stop that. We're going to adjust. But they never had that like thinking layer on top of it.
It's more of like if they do this,
Yeah.
then it will work. So then we have to course correct. Now it's like the AI is like smart enough to go, yeah, I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Not going to work.
Yep.
Got
Exactly.
it. So, all right. So let's say, you start from the beginning. You're going to AI search. You're saying, what do you know about me? This is what people are searching for. Then over the course of the next 90 days, you are, because this is, very straightforward, easy to do. You are actually creating blog content around the information that you would people to be wondering about. You are updating your service pages. You're starting to record your phone calls, which help out with your FAQs. You're getting on YouTube. You're getting on podcasts. You're starting to answer Reddit. Then you're, joining these different, associations. And by the end of those 90 days, assuming that the AI search tools are able to find those things, because again, back to the idea that you can't, have a child in a month if you get 9 women pregnant. Back to that, if it has enough time and it picks up of your stuff quickly enough, then when you say, great, now what do you know about me? It will then have a much deeper knowledge of your company. Then when you do some of those searches, it will go, great. In fact, they do talk about this article and they do this one thing, and this is the evidence that's associated with it. You're in a much better spot.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
I feel like that's a good stopping point.
Yeah, I think that's definitely good. And what you would want to do at the end of that is kind of do a recheck of what you did in the beginning. So if you searched a bunch of stuff on ChatGPT, what'd you know about my business, remodelers in my area, do those, record those the first time you do them on a Google Sheet or whatever it is, track what showed up. And now at the end of this 90 days, go and do it again and see what progress was made. Is it more accurate? Am I showing up more? Things of that nature. So
I feel like the accuracy part's big because over those 90 days, your personalization could have changed. Like
Yep.
it could be different and stuff like that. So like, and as it changes versus like, to me, if I want to do it without going crazy, I would be like, these are the questions that I would ask, but more so I would just say, what do you know about this company? That way it's kind of like a single blind statement that just says, go out there and you figure it out on your own.
Yeah. You could also, when you see other companies that show up in that search, pop those websites open, pop open their Google business profile, see maybe what they're doing and why, do they have a trusted by 1,500 homeowners on their homepage, or, all these kind of stats that lead an LLM to think that they're more trusted. And you don't have those. So maybe you can spot some easy gaps or easy wins just by seeing who are the people that are, if I'm not the ones getting recommended, who is, and what are they doing different than me?
Perfect. Cool. All right. Good luck. See you guys next time.
See ya.